All right, for our last segment of the workshop, we are going to hear from someone who works with the human voice and with music, a singer-songwriter. And it's important to remember, I think, and I think that Aimee Mann gives us an opportunity to remember this, that people across history, across time, across space, as long as we've been on this planet, people have always made some form of poetry and lifted their voices together in song. So, we're going to hear from Aimee Mann to conclude our day. She is a rock guitarist, bassist, singer, and songwriter, born in Richmond, Virginia, and the glasses, who graduated from Open High School, attended the Berklee College of Music in Boston, but dropped out to sing with her first punk rock band, the Young Snakes. She then, after that, co-founded a new wave band called Till Tuesday, which achieved great success in 1985 with its first album, Voices Carry, and that video became an MTV staple. Some of you might have seen it, winning the MTV Video Music Award for Best New Artist. In 1990, she began her solo career, and her many albums include the soundtrack for the movie Magnolia. Let's please welcome Aimee Mann.
I think we have to set up some stuff. Are we going to play or talk?
Do you want to talk while you set up, or do you want to play, whichever you prefer?
I don't think I can do two things at once. So there'll be.
Choose what goes first.
We'll play first and then do.
Okay, great.
Thanks. Usually we have a guy to do this. This is Jevin and Paul. They're going to be helping me out.
A perfect fit for a girl in need of a tourniquet. But can you save me? Come on and save me. If you could save me from the ranks of the freaks who suspect they could never love anyone. 'Cause I can tell you know what it's like. A long farewell of the hunger strike. But can you save me? Why don't you save me? If you could save me from the ranks of the freaks who suspect they could never love anyone. You struck me down a gradient like Peter Pan or Superman, you will come to save me. Why don't you save me? If you could save me from the ranks of the freaks who suspect they could never love anyone, except the freaks who suspect they could never love anyone, but the freaks who suspect they could never love anyone. Come on and save me. Why don't you save me? If you can save me from the ranks of the freaks who suspect they could never love anyone, except the freaks who suspect they could never love anyone, except the freaks who could never love anyone.
Thank you.
Start with a question to ask you about poetry that isn't set to music, and how poetry is a part of or isn't a part of your making songs, your whole process.
I don't think it's really, it's not like I read a lot of poetry. I mean, I think that my thing is I have a real love of language, and sort of whatever I come across where the person clearly has a love of words. I mean, I think like Billy was, when he was talking about that, you know, you sort of come for the, you know, for the form, for the love of language, for the love of the form. That's kind of my thing, and you know, in a lot of ways, I don't feel like lyrics are poetry. I mean, I feel like lyrics, I think that it's like cheating, because you have music, and like as soon as you hear the music, it makes you feel something. So you're already, you know, like you don't have to rely on language as much. And like my personal feeling is that people get away with murder with lyrics, and that you know, you can have a song that's still a pretty good song where clearly the person's not really thinking so much about what they're saying, and that does drive me crazy, because I love words. I love the form. I love having the form be, you know, I love having rhymes that are exact, and internal rhymes, and alliteration, like all the sort of classic things that poetry has to offer. I feel like the more you have of that, the better the experience is as a listener, because those things kind of click in your brain. They sort of, you know, it's like, it's a fun thing for your brain to hear that kind of, you know, like exact rhymes or words within a sentence that kind of go together in an interesting way. So, you know, so it's not poetry specifically, but whoever likes to move words around, I'm a fan of.
And let's hear from some other, I'm sure that many of you have questions as well. Questions for Aimee Mann. I have more,
Nope.
but I want you all to ask questions. Right there. Poet shirt. Yes. Oh, you all have shirts that say poet.
Hello. My question was, how do you, because for me, I don't think I could ever write a song. So do you think you could ever write poetry in silence, like without the music, if you could?
I think I could. I think it could, but it would probably be harder. I mean, it would definitely be harder. one of the things, you know, I mean, I've always sort of felt like I'm not a very articulate person, and writing songs is it sort of became for me a way to talk about things that I could not talk about in any other way. And I think that really, like, having music kind of jumpstart that. It just, you know, like if you hear. You know, if you feel something, or I do anyway, and then I go, well, what is that I'm feeling? And to me, it feels like the music has a story in it, and I just have to kind of figure out what that is. And maybe it's a little like having a dream and interpreting your dream, or looking at a piece of art and you know, or it's like a Rorschach test, really. You know, you look at the ink blot and you go like, it looks like a butterfly with like a guy with a, you know. So maybe that's just what it is, and I don't know. I think that's okay. But that's sort of how I approach it, because that saves me the burden of going, what am I thinking and how do I feel? And you know, I go, well, what does the music say? But it does feel like cheating, I have to say.
One last question.
Here's some.
You could stand.
What led you to cross over from like the hardcore punk scene into a more acoustic sound?
I think that when I was younger, I wasn't an accomplished musician, so the punk scene was attractive because it was really like anything goes, and you could do anything, and just, you know, like my manager is here, and we were in bands in Boston together, and he was in a band, and they had a song, the lyrics of which were a recipe for shrimp flambé. And it was kind of like, there was something that was very fun, it was very playful about that, having, you know, you could do whatever you wanted to. But then I started to realize, like, that within that sort of, you know, super arty underground punk scene, there were things that you were not supposed to write about. Like, you weren't supposed to write about any kind of relationship stuff or love songs. That was out of the question. And then I started to feel like, well, this is kind of restrictive. And so I did sort of an about face, and you know, and I don't think like I'm essentially a very, you know, sort of angry, punky type of person in the first place, but it was a fun thing to try out for a while.
Okay, well, thank you, Aimee Mann.
Thank you so much.